Again, my name is Rose Stein. I'm a nutrition and lifestyle coach. I'm also a hypnotherapist, and I support women who are just done with the crazy dieting nightmare and just want to figure out like how to eat like a normal person, like just food that is good for our bodies and like not have to be thinking about it crazy all day long or obsessing about it. And like, how do we get our mind right and our bodies right, like going in that direction? Today, I really want to talk about ideal weight. And specifically, I have a question for you ladies. Have you ever lost a bunch of weight, like enough to where people were commenting and noticing, but the method that you used, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, wasn't really the healthiest? I've done this a few times. I've actually done it a couple times where it was like intentional and then also unintentional. Like there was one time, I never thought that I was really this kind of person to get like so upset and depressed that like I wouldn't eat. But there was a time in my life when that happened, and I was very, very upset for a long period of time. And I lost a bunch of weight. And so of course people would comment about that. Like I just couldn't eat, which is unusual for me, but people would comment about it. And I remember another time I lost a bunch of weight. This is when I was younger, from a non-savory method, let's say. I remember I walked into my parents' house and my stepfather commented like, "Oh my God, you look amazing. Like, you know, you look really good. You've lost weight." Like, and the kind of like under, like in between the lines, you know, the text, the meaning is you must then be taking good care of yourself, right? That typically we correlate these things of like losing weight and being healthy. Those things are often correlated together and they don't actually go together, right? And what our ideal weight is can be a really confusing place for those of us who have really struggled with our weight up and down and up and down and up and down for a really long time, you know, years, decades, to really go, okay, like at this age, with this experience, with this life, like what is my body's ideal weight, my natural and ideal weight? And you know, it was interesting because at that same time, a friend of my brother's was also at the house. And so when I walked in, I had like dropped all of this weight really quickly. And I got this compliment from my stepfather. His name was Drew, my brother's friend, Drew. He came in and he was like, he just started like yelling. You know, he's like, "What are you talking about? She doesn't look good. This is not right." Like, you know, like he just knew. He was like, "This is not the healthy way. Like, I don't care what your body looks like and what look good you're having on the outside." And it's really interesting because some people will ask me like, "How come you don't talk a lot about, you know, weight and weighing yourself? And how come you don't have a lot of like the before and after pictures?" And quite frankly, you guys, it's because there is, and I had to really think about this, right? Like I knew that I didn't like that and didn't want to do that in my business. But I didn't really understand why until I really started to kind of mull over it. And part of it is because I'm not at my lowest weight. And it is an interesting thing to mentally navigate what it means to actually be at an ideal weight, but not be at your lowest weight. Because for so long, I just wanted to lose as much weight as I possibly could, right? Like that was the idea. Like I want to get rid of all of it. Like if I could just take my belly and cut it off, take the thigh and cut it off, you know, like cut all of the fat off, then like I would feel good. Then I would be happy. Then my clothes would fit. Then I would have energy. Then I would whatever, all these things. The reality is the last time I was at my lowest weight, even though I was eating the right foods and I was going to yoga regularly and I wasn't doing anything weird. I wasn't in the depressed state. I wasn't doing other, you know, weird diet pills and things like that. It wasn't anything like that. But I just kept restricting, and not really adding in any food and not having any flexibility and not really having any fun and joy in my life, although I was super thin, but I also lost my period for 2 years. I also was cold all the time. I was hungry all the time. I was tired all the time. And so what I was doing wasn't actually working for my body. And it wasn't until I gained about 15 pounds that my body came back to life, where I now finally have the energy and my period is very regular. And well, now I'm getting on in years. And so there's like weird things happening with that. But you know what I'm saying? There's like so many other things that are relevant to the health of this physical body that really don't have that much to do with weight. And so sometimes when I see people share these very dramatic pictures, I question, just, I think probably from my own personal experience, and I don't know if you have a similar type of experience, where I wasn't well mentally or physically at my smallest weight. And so to show those pictures, it seems like there's a disconnect. Like I couldn't show them and be like, oh, I lost all of this weight and this is so great. But there's underlying things that are also important, like how are we sleeping, right? How is our energy? How is our hunger? How is our cravings? How is our cycle? How is our sex drive? How is our mood? There are things to consider when we are adjusting ourselves and really settling into what is an ideal weight. Not because of what size clothes I have in the closet, or what size I was in high school, or what size the doctor says that I should be, or any of those external modalities. It's really your own body, right? Like it's time for me, and this is one of my practices and what I work on with my clients as well, is like, what is your body saying to you? And it's always speaking to us. If there are things that are out of whack, there are things that are to be adjusted in terms of our relationship with food and body, our thoughts about food and our body. And it has been an interesting change for me to think of my body in a different way, to not want to just be thinner, really settling into, okay, like, I'm not going to be as thin as I was. And it's not just in my 20s, but it's like, I'm not going to be as thin as I perceive in my mind is the right way for me, right? Because my body's letting me know this is the way that you actually feel your best. The energy, the sleep, the health, the cravings, the hunger, my cycle, all of those other aspects as well. So if you guys can relate to anything that I am saying, that is one of the reasons why when you become a client of mine, like, yeah, we talk about weight sometimes. I do weigh myself every Friday morning, before I take a shower, after I go to the bathroom, right? And with no clothes on. So it's like consistent each week. I do weigh myself and I do chart that. And I do think that keeping track of things is important. And it's really about accountability to myself. It's about removing the judgment from the numbers, removing the need to then act because of the numbers. And when you have a coach and someone who is helping you and guiding you, and you're not alone anymore. And that was one of the most beautiful things that one of my clients said to me the other day. She's like, Rose, I when I go to the grocery store, I don't feel like I'm alone anymore. And I was like, I love that, right? That like when we're like connected, my son calls it string theory. He says that we're connected by a string, like an energetic string, you and whatever your group is, that you guys have a common problem and hopefully a common solution. And so wherever you go, you're connected, right? You're connected by that energetic string. And so you never really feel alone anymore, which is so beautiful. One of the reasons why I weigh and I jot down that number is to have that accountability and to have a number that is outside of my own mind, because things get kind of jumbled in there. You know what I'm saying? And as the years go by and there's more and more to consider, I don't remember things correctly unless I wrote them down. like literally there's no way. Like I will, and that's just how the human brain works. And especially again, as the years go by, there's more and more information that we're trying to sort through. And so having that number just like on the calendar every Friday, it was like I looked at the weight that I started this year with at 154, and I flashed back to what I started the year with the previous year, and it was 155. Awesome, right? There, are little fluctuations throughout the year, but like that's a pretty awesome consistency that there's not these like crazy ups and downs. I don't need to start a diet. Like I've really settled into the groove of like just eating what is appropriate for my body and keeping myself accountable with the scale, but not a slave to it. And there's a subtle difference. And it really takes intention and consistency and help and support and guidance. At least that's what I needed to really travel that journey from the way that I used to think about it to the way that I think about it now. And it's a continuing evolution. I continue to have my eyes opened in different ways and continue having opportunities to really settle into what it means to really make a lifestyle change, where I have changed the way that I am thinking to match with the way that I am feeling, and having that emotional maturity to adjust the way that I am feeling to continue moving forward. Really powerful stuff, you guys. So thank you so much for bringing up the idea and the concept of an ideal weight, and like, what is an ideal weight? And how do we like navigate that? And how do we know when we've gotten there? And again, there are some things that you want to consider. One, obviously having the consistency of whatever your food plan is. Because if you're going on diets and you're doing this like it's so much different from the way that you would eat if you were actually at your natural and ideal weight and you just wanted to maintain that. So if that plan of how you like to eat is totally different than how your plan is to lose the weight, by the time you get there, the motivation to actually make those changes mentally, physically, and spiritually and on all levels isn't there anymore, because you don't have the motivation of having to lose the weight. So that's why people crumble and fall when they get to their ideal weight, is because it's so drastically different and there's no motivation. So really what you want to do is you want to start eating exactly the way that you want to be eating when you're at your natural and ideal weight to maintain, right? So like whatever that is, to me, that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, real food, right? I mean, that only makes sense, right? Because that you can do when you're on vacation, that you can do when you're at home, that you can do at work, that you can do anywhere. Like breakfast, lunch, and dinner is just a really simple, consistent, basic way to kind of navigate the human body and maintaining health and vitality. So if that's what I know that I will be doing at my natural and ideal weight, then all you got to do is make a couple tiny little adjustments in terms of probably quantity of what you're eating to lose the weight. So it's nice and slow and steady, and you're building the skills and the motivation and the stick-to-itiveness and the automaticity that is going to be needed, so that by the time you get to your ideal weight, you don't need the motivation of losing weight to stay there and to stay consistent. That is like my many tidbits and power lessons for the day. I love you so very much. I'm so proud of you. Again, I would love to communicate with you. I would love for you to leave me a comment. I would love for you to like this, to share it, to get in touch with me, to ask me questions. I am here to help, and I love you, and I'm so proud of you.